Millions of Australians are now under strict stay-at-home orders. Today, the Sunshine State was plunged into a snap 3-day lockdown, triggered by a healthcare worker who holidayed while contagious with the highly infectious Delta strain.
Once again, Australia is shutting down, paralysed by lockdowns in 4 states. It started in New South Wales, where 5.5 million people in Greater Sydney are in lockdown for 2 weeks. Next came Darwin, where 200,000 are in lockdown until Friday. Overnight, 2 million Perth residents were plunged into a snap closure, and today, 5 million Queenslanders in the southeast and the north of the state are facing a 3-day lockdown. All up, 13 million people, or half the Australian population.
G'day everyone, so just down here in Horseshoe Bay on Maggie Island. So this beach just about 30 minutes ago was absolutely packed. We've all found out the news that the 3-day lockdown has come into Townsville and Maggie's.
Craig Crichton runs a kayak tour company on Magnetic Island off Townsville in North Queensland. He says within minutes of the lockdown announcement, holiday makers disappeared and businesses closed 6 hours before they had to.
It was absolutely crazy here before, and all the cars are pretty much left. Cafes have closed as well too, and some of the other businesses are just shutting down in front of me over here. So absolute kick in the guts, but let's look at the positives of it. Don't know what they are yet, but have a good day, guys.
All 2,500 residents on the island have been asked to get tested.
Just shocked, yeah, gutted. I think though too, like we've had a really rough weather at the start of this season, so business-wise with kayaking, it's been like this.
All this because a 19-year-old Brisbane woman who has now tested positive to COVID spent 3 days holidaying on the island while infectious. A group of Olympic swimmers, including Mac Horton and gold medal hopeful Kyle Chalmers, may regret this trip to the island during training preparations ahead of Tokyo. These photos taken on the final day the infected teen was also there. The athletes today headed for Cairns and are awaiting COVID test results. Throughout the coronavirus crisis, regional Queensland has escaped the worst of it. But up here in Cairns, which is the next city north of Townsville, it's an anxious wait to see how the latest COVID-19 outbreak develops and to see if it's the next regional centre sent into lockdown.
You know, we've been pretty safe up here for the most part, so if it is coming to us, obviously it's a little bit scary.
Mitch Hudson runs this Cairns pizza business.
We're only 4 hours away, so it's easy for something to make its way up here, and we're only just getting started again.
We've seen that like Brisbane and everything's in lockdown, and we're worried that we're going to be stuck.
Katrina and Leah are on holidays from Melbourne.
I would rather be in lockdown here than anywhere else.
Vivian and Mia are from Hobart.
Hopefully it doesn't get any further north, we'll be fine.
The risk is real, and we need to act quickly.
Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk said the 19-year-old woman who has sparked the latest scare is a casual clerical worker outside the COVID ward at Brisbane's Prince Charles Hospital.
Now, one of her close friends is sick, they're getting tested, and 2 of her family members are sick and they are getting tested.
The health worker developed symptoms a week ago. She and her family flew from Brisbane to Townsville last Thursday, then travelled to Magnetic Island by ferry before returning to Townsville on Sunday and flying back to Brisbane.
Despite the health directives that she should have been vaccinated, she was not. And let me say, I am absolutely furious about this.
Even before today's announcement, queues started building outside southeast Queensland hospitals as people rushed to try and get vaccinated amid news of 4 new cases. While AFL team, the Brisbane Lions, made a hasty exit from the state ahead of a game in Adelaide on Saturday, coach Chris Fagan not sure how long they'd stay away.
No idea. Yeah. No idea. We're just going for one game as far as we know at the moment.
We have a large proportion of our state unvaccinated. The federal government is in charge of supply of that vaccination.
The Queensland Premier has joined her Victorian counterpart, Daniel Andrews, calling on the Prime Minister to reduce the number of people arriving from overseas.
And until that time that the large proportion of the Queensland public are vaccinated, we should massively reduce the number of returning Australians.
It's not just the 3 days in it. It's a lot where, a lot of people now will probably not come up to travel for this year.
Back on Magnetic Island, Craig Crichton says the locals are just holding their breath.
Just sort of stuck in limbo at the moment up here. Just fingers crossed. So.
Well, now to the worrying trend of the Delta variant being transmitted between kids at schools. Already hundreds of children are in isolation as schools are deep cleaned. It sparked calls for teachers to be vaccinated immediately.
The adults are actually the ones that are spreading amongst themselves as opposed to children being a key driver.
The health advice still stands, and that is that schools are safe.
Overwhelmingly for children, especially those 9 years and younger, the illness of COVID-19 is very, very mild.
For children, the health advice has been very clear that schools are a safe place for students to be.
Last year, the government repeatedly told us COVID was less likely to spread in schools. But the new Delta variant appears to be way more infectious in children than previous strains. The virus has leapt to several schools already in Sydney's eastern suburbs. With one 9-year-old student's case a mystery. So how did the child become infected?
The transmissibility, the contagion, the spreading of the disease is much more in everybody, including children.
Well, clearly from this point forward, teachers have to be regarded as frontline workers.
Hundreds of Sydney students and staff are spending school holidays in isolation after COVID not only snuck in, but also made friends. At South Coogee Public School, 4 students are now infected, and a positive case at Rose Bay Secondary College has made it one of the latest exposure sites.
The school site will be closed today for cleaning. All staff and student have been asked to self-isolate until they receive further advice.
But thanks to the work of contact tracing teams overnight, Aruna Ayinga and her daughter Maya, who was in Year 11 at Rose Bay, have already been classified as casual contacts.
It is concerning that the Delta variant seems to be going through schools at the moment, and I want all of us to be vaccinated as quickly as possible, and it's insanely frustrating that the governments, all governments, the federal and the state governments, are just playing a blame game and really haven't got a plan together.
Amber Floam from the New South Wales Teachers Federation says teachers should be given priority for the vaccine.
With over 1 million people coming through our school gates each and every day in New South Wales, over 800,000 children and 100,000 teachers and principals, teachers' roles in vaccination help to ensure the safety of all on site.
Since the pandemic began, 4,169 children aged 19 and under have contracted the virus, accounting for 14% of all cases in Australia. It's a similar ratio to the US, but in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta, where the new Delta variant has taken hold, cases in children have surged to 16%. It's left 689 children dead. It's led the country's drug authority to urgently approve the COVID-19 vaccine for children as young as 12. The US has approved Pfizer for emergency use in children aged 12 to 15 years old, with more than 3 million already receiving the jab. But in Australia, neither of the vaccines are approved for people under 16 years of age.
In terms of protecting them from COVID, at the moment the vaccine's not available to kids. If they change that advice, would you get your kids vaccinated?
Yeah, 100%. I'm fully vaccinated and I trust the science, and if they say it's safe, then yes, they'll be vaccinated.
If they opened up vaccines to kids, which they are doing in some other countries, I mean, would you consider getting your kids vaccinated?
I think I'll have to look at what vaccine is available before I do that.
Infectious diseases expert at the University of Sydney, Robert Boyce, says like adults, children should be wearing masks.
If the virus is circulating in the community, then it's a reasonable and good thing for children to wear masks, for them to be more spaced out in the classroom, for their breaks to be adjusted so that they're not all on the playground at the same time.
Are you worried about your little ones getting COVID?
I think the whole situation is a little bit worrying, but you just have to be as careful as one can be, and we're suffering a little bit. I think we'd much rather be planning our little holiday as we had, or visiting friends, or having play dates for her.
Nobody wants a return to what happened last year during the pandemic. Our children miss their teachers and we miss them too.